Okay.
Okay, good evening. This is Stephanie Hellman, and today is Wednesday, January 28th, and I'm calling to order the Marin County Council of Mayors and Council's members forum agenda this evening. Rebecca, will you please take a roll call?
Okay, thank you. I'll call out each city, and if you are here, please say here. Belvedere,
Present.
Corte Madera,
Yes, here.
Fairfax. Well, we have Stephanie. Do we have
I'm
any
here.
other? Okay. Larkspur,
Here.
Mill Valley,
Here.
Novato,
Here.
Ross,
Here.
San Anselmo. Do we have any San Anselmo? San Rafael,
Present.
Sausalito. Do we have any Sausalito? No. And Tiburon.
Here.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like we are missing currently San Anselmo and Sausalito, which does give us a quorum. And I'll keep an eye out for representatives from those cities as the
That'd be great.
discussion proceeds.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to move us on to public comment. Do we have any members of the public on the Zoom this evening? Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak.
Do you have a raised hand from Melody?
Yes, I could see her raised hand.
Okay, Melody.
Please go ahead, Melody. Welcome.
Hi. Yes. What a great group. My name is Melody Schumacher. I live on Paradise Drive. I have 3 adult kids that grew up in Corte Madera, and I am very pleased to announce that Corte Madera passed the Make Polluters Fund Pay bill. And that's what I wanted to talk to you all about. This is a bill, it's a 2-year bill that Sacramento is considering, and it is funds taken from the big polluters, oil companies assessed by the EPA, and it's funds that are not used in your general fund, but specifically for climate resiliency and repair for climate disasters. I don't know if you've heard about this bill, but it is got a resurgence and it is coming on strong. And I am here to get this coalition to support the bill. I just think it would be a home run if this coalition, you have a fire in Nicasio, the smoke does not stop on that border, it comes across. You have a flood in Corte Madera. We all know what that looks like. I think a coalition vote would help us smooth the road into getting local cities to support this. So why am I asking local cities to support this? So just last week, we had 3 new cities, Tracy and Paso Robles, vote yes. And that is really to send a message to Sacramento that these funds would help your community. I had the privilege of interviewing Pat Ravazio yesterday. Was it yesterday, Pat?
Yes, it was just
for
yesterday.
promotional video, and I asked her a leading question. I'm like, if this fund, if these funds would be generated, what would you use them for? And by golly, didn't she have a list already of what she had already decided those funds would be used for? So in a very brief time, I want to just dispel a couple myths. So I am with Third Act, which is those of us in an older generation that are concerned about democracy and climate change, and I have signed on to this campaign. My opposition is big oil, and they have some pretty big lobbyists, and their biggest lobbying point is that this will raise gas prices because the revenue is generated off a percentage of their profits. It will not raise gas prices. I know we're all concerned about the price of eggs. It will not raise, and I have 2 very detailed economic reports from UCLA and UC Berkeley about that. The second one I wanted to really talk to you directly about is something I've gotten from local council members, is that it's not our job to vote on opinion. And I think I'm speaking to the leaders here in Marin that have all, seen the result of things that have trickled down from Sacramento. This is an opportunity for you to be bold and tell Sacramento what would really affect your community. What would
Melody,
help?
Melody, thank you so much, but you do need to keep it to 3 minutes,
Am
okay,
I
for
over?
today? Well,
Got about 20 seconds left.
oh,
Oh,
so
okay, I'm
sorry,
done.
so sorry. My clock was saying the wrong time.
That's
Um,
okay. I will
Thank
put my
you.
email
Thank
in
you
a
for
chat.
everything you're doing. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Eh,
I strongly vouch for this bill at this time. It's needed. It could be a real game changer.
Oh, I see chat's disabled. I will be sending you an email with my email, and I would love questions and I would love your support. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Melody. You
Bye.
guys, she's amazing. She brought in a camera crew and she's something.
Thank you, Melody. Thank you, Pat. Are there
Sure,
any other
sure.
hands raised?
I am not seeing any additional hands raised, and we did not receive any emails for open time.
Okay, closing open time and moving on with the agenda. I'd like to welcome our guests. We're not quite ready on the agenda for the presentation, but I'm very pleased to have Stephen Torrance with us this evening, who's the County Director of Emergency Management, and Isaac Landman with placement is going to present their solution related to workforce rental housing and a pilot that has just kicked off in Mill Valley. But first, we're going to have the business meeting. So the first item on the agenda related to that is 4A, consider approval of unconditional commitment to the Brown Act for MCCMC standing committees. And also wanted to let you know that Rebecca and I, among others, are really taking a look at all of our processes and operations, including the bylaws, and we'll be coming back to you with some recommendations. But let's talk about 4A. And Alice, I know you're on and you're welcome to speak at any time, but essentially, the recommendation is to change our processes whereby all standing committees from here on are complying with the Brown Act. And that would be specifically, which is outlined in the staff report, but allowing public access and access to the information that's being presented, etc. And we did receive a cease and desist letter. We don't have to get into the details, but you can see in Exhibit 1 that's provided. There was a member of the public who was frustrated because she was prohibited from attending and participating, etc. So I don't think we need to get into it, but I would like to hear feedback, questions, and entertain a motion thereafter.
I'd like to hear from Alice Fredericks on this with regard to our legislative group.
Yeah.
And I'll be glad to talk to you. Rather than defend anything, I will just say that our course of business has been, as it is for a really long time, on the assumption that at one time, I can't remember if we did it or we just talked about it, that depending on where we were in the legislative session, we would just bring the information to the body as a whole, and the body as a whole would be approving what happened. And that turned out not to work very well because of the speed at which bills are amended and changed and make a real difference to these what this committee is supposed to be doing, which is protecting the ability of cities to deliver services. I have absolutely no objection to becoming a fully recognized Brown Act able committee. I don't know if there are committee members here who would like to comment on it. I've had a few comments about people concerned about the fact, some of them not being able to make it if it's in person, and also the fact that we will have to have one of the cities or some number of the cities provide us a physical place to have a meeting. Nevertheless, I support this. I want this whole body to get the respect that it ought to have. And I think becoming fully recognizable and accepting the Brown Act conditions of a meeting is something we should do.
Thank you, Alice.
So
Any other questions or
I
comments?
have a couple questions on that. So why do we have to go from a Zoom meeting to an in-person meeting just to comply with the Brown Act? Why can't it be all on Zoom with a link provided to the public for the Zoom? I don't understand why we have to change everything about how we do business to accommodate the Brown Act.
The Brown Act requires that you have more than a quorum in one location. So you can't do all Zoom.
Well,
And so,
I refuse to do that then. I think that we need
well,
to
then
give
you'll have
the
to
public
step
another
off.
way. Well, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a
I
possibility
mean,
too.
it's Alice and I have talked about it. We used to meet in person, and it's difficult because we're trying to keep the meetings to an hour. It'll be more difficult in person because getting there, etc., makes them, it's a lot of travel time. We understand that, but as Alice said, we're committed to doing what's right for the organization. And so there may be some folks who can't participate in person, and they may want to choose someone else from their council to be on the group. I just have one question, since what I read in the packet was MCCMC as a whole will be a Brown Act body. Then I called Stephanie before the meeting to say, no more Zoom meetings. We're gonna have to
Yeah.
meet in person. So that's
Yeah, and I
gonna be another
appreciate you bringing that
challenge.
up. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, and we'll talk about that after we get through this ledge
Is
item.
Yeah.
is there any law?
Anyway.
Is there any law proposed to change that so that we can meet in Zoom, or maybe that's something to look into?
Well,
I'll write to Damon. I think it's crazy.
Well, anyway,
To
there were
stop us from
attempts.
meeting in Zoom, to try to stop us from meeting in Zoom is, I think, an infringement of what would reasonably be assumed to be a full accommodation. I mean, you
Well,
could have a
yeah, I mean,
a
it's an,
member of the public, a member of the public can Zoom in. There's no reason why the law should ever force us to have to meet in person. That is not okay to me. I would like to fight that. So I'll go fight that but I'm going to go off this committee. I'm going to go off your legislative group, I think, because yeah, I won't go into it.
Well, let me just jump in and say this is not a matter of arbitrary decisions. This is a matter of how government bodies ought to act under the Brown Act. We can go to court and argue about whether we're actually a Brown Act body, but tell me where the funding is for that.
No, I wouldn't do that. I just would look into what would it take to change the law. I attended a Brown Act whole seminar at Cal Cities last year, and there are people who are lawyers who work for cities who are really opposed to some of the things in the Brown Act and are working hard to get them changed. So I'll go do that.
Thank you.
Can we just want to clarify
everybody.
Can you?
Can
she has to go. She has a Corte Madera meeting, right? Is that right?
I'm
Rebecca?
sorry.
Yes, the Corte Madera has a special flood workshop this evening. So most of the Corte Madera council members are attending that at 6:30.
Okay, just as a reminder, I am on a mobile phone because my computer broke. So I can't see who's on and who has their hands raised. So Rebecca,
Okay.
you're
Yes, we have two council members with hands raised, Pat and then Joan. Pat Eklund and then Joan Cox.
please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephanie. First of all, I totally support the recommendation. And I think that, because see, I had ABAG meetings too with the ABAG reps, especially when we were going through Plan Bay Area, we were meeting to actually help to frame that program. And so we haven't had major decisions at ABAG since then. But as we get into the arena, I will be calling for more meetings of all the cities. So I really appreciate the fact that we are going to be, we should be adhering to the Brown Act. I think that there are some issues with people who cannot physically get to a location. And we don't have a location that we can turn to other than our own cities. So that's going to be a challenge because some people don't want to come north. They don't want to come super south. They want to be centrally located in Marin. So we're going to have to figure all that out. But I trust this organization to be able to do that so that we can make it work for everybody. Because I don't want us to reduce the collaboration that we have worked so hard to get in mayors and council members. And I certainly appreciate it as representative to ABAG and RENA and all those other very sensitive issues. And so that's my comment. But we have to figure this out so that we can make sure that it works out. And Stephanie, I'm volunteering to help you to develop a process along with Rebecca or whomever else you want to appoint to help us put together some sort of the rules of the road.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
before we call on the next raised hand, I just wanted to point out that prior to COVID, the meetings were 100% in person with the rotating cities hosting the meetings. So we would need to probably just figure out February and March, but in April we would return to that rotating host city.
Well, and I think it's worth reiterating.
But Rebecca, this is for meetings outside of MCCMC. You know, like the
correct, but
legislative committee.
MCCMC must meet in person also.
Yeah.
So no more, we wouldn't be able to carry on these winter Zoom meetings like we had been with January, February, and March being held virtually over Zoom.
Right. But, you know, are we going to be able to get a room in one of the cities to have all the ABAG delegates meet about RENA? Or, you know, are we going to have
of
to
course.
pay?
Corte Madera always let you host in our council chambers in the past.
Well, I'm a stepchild for Corte Madera. So
I'd like us to keep this scope focused.
And Joan
the
Cox has her hand raised.
Okay, can you hear me, Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay,
Joan has her hand raised.
I want to keep us focused on the ledge committee and the standing committees, and we can talk about everything else after. And I also wanted to just reiterate that if you have a quorum in person, then you can continue with the Zoom. So if you want to be really organized and get your RSVPs in and really, you know, that continues to be an option, but that, you know, that is requires a lot of administrative support in advance, and that will not be Rebecca. Go ahead, Joan.
Hi, thanks everybody. Joan Cox from Sausalito, and I've been a member of this committee on and off since 2017. And so I also participated in the in-person meetings before we went to Zoom. And I, as a municipal lawyer myself, I did want to just make the point Stephanie just did, which is that as long as a quorum are present in one location, we can have a hybrid meeting where people can participate remotely, so long as at least 72 hours in advance of the meeting, they publish where they will be participating from, and they allow members of the public to show up to participate there. There are other exceptions to the Brown Act, the just cause exceptions that allow you to participate remotely if you have a medical issue or other times, and you can do that a couple of times a year, depending on how often the committee meets. So there are definitely accommodations we can make for people who are unable to participate in person every time. And I look forward to working together to help us identify and coordinate those exceptions where appropriate. So it relieves me to follow the recommendation to deem this a Brown Act committee, because we do make some interim decisions on behalf of our respective agencies. And we are not strictly an internal ad hoc committee. And so it does feel right to me, even though it is more challenging logistically to take this path forward. And so I applaud that and support that. And I look forward to working together with everyone to make this as seamless a transition as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. And Barbara has her hand raised.
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, as I said before, we're committed to make this work for the legislative committee. And I think Joan pointed out some really good information. However, I want to point out that we're a small group. We do have a staffer, Azalea Renfeld. We cannot be doing all these special accommodations for people just because they don't want to drive somewhere. That's going to make it even more challenging. And understand the just cause, which is something unavoidable, but to start having just a few people in one location and then people at their various houses for a small committee might be very difficult. I think we can work out the logistics. And just want to point out that we used to meet in San Rafael's room, although I don't know that that was available for the public at the time, but that's a central location, and hopefully that'll work out for us in the future. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey guys, my meeting's starting, so I'm gonna take off. I don't want you to think I'm leaving mad or anything. I'm just gonna go do this flood meeting. So thank you so much for all your
Thanks,
work on
Pat.
this. Really appreciate it. Especially you, Rebecca. Rebecca is our guardian angel here. Thank you so much. Okay, bye everybody.
Okay, do we have any other hands raised?
I am not seeing any raised hands from panelists, and I will give attendees from the public a moment to see if there are any hands raised on that side. I am not seeing any raised hands from public attendees at this time.
Okay.
Oh, Gabe Paulson has his hand raised now. Yes, Gabe?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I'm ready to move this if there's no other discussion to pass this.
Oh, wait. Oh, I thought I just saw somebody raise their hand. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so Gabe and Pat. Okay.
Do you want to take a?
Yes, I will do a roll call vote. I know we lost Corte Madera, but we gained Sausalito, so we're still just missing 2 cities. Belvedere.
Yes.
Corte Madera. I don't believe we have any. Fairfax.
Yes.
Larkspur.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Mill Valley.
Yes.
Mill Valley.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I was getting off mute.
Okay, Mill Valley has yes. Okay. Novato.
Yes.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Did we gain any San Anselmo? I don't see San Anselmo. San Rafael.
Yes.
Thank you. Sausalito.
Yes.
Thank you. Tiburon.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. 9 yeses, no nays, and 2 absent. Thank you.
Terrific. Okay, so we are, embarking on a change management, and we will support you in this change. Let us know how we can do that. I'm happy to look at central locations should the ledge committee decide they want to continue with that hybrid approach. In the meantime, as Barbara Kohler mentioned, and we touched on, this meeting is also impacted. And so we're going to be looking for a February host. No one needs to chime in right now, but
I will volunteer to see if Sausalito can host, because we missed our
wonderful,
hosting
Joan.
opportunity last year. So I'll inquire of the
Thank you.
Spinnaker. We have a nice indoor conference room with a good view, even in the winter. So I will inquire for Sausalito.
Appreciate that very, very much. Thank you, Joan. And then, as I touched on earlier, we're looking at everything right now, and we're talking to our counterparts up in Sonoma and other neighboring counties. We are aware of some other items that need to be updated, and we'll be coming back with you with some recommendations. And the bylaws require, Rebecca, help me out, it requires 2 meetings before they can be officially updated. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
So we would bring forward recommendations at the next meeting potentially to be adopted in March.
Okay. For this item, for this standing meeting item that we just voted on.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Moving on to item 4B, consider approval of request to sunset the MCCMC homeless subcommittee. There is a memo related to this. It's our understanding that the subcommittee hasn't met in some time for various reasons, and I'm not sure if Rachel is with us this evening, but she recommended that we sunset this committee. And the county, as you probably know, has a committee that is open to the public, and anyone who's interested in getting involved is welcome to do that. Do we have any questions on this item? Remember, I can't see hands.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we have Barbara Kohler and Lisa Blash have raised hands.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about this. San Rafael has made some tremendous inroads dealing with unhoused, and I've never been a part of the committee. I understand they haven't met for a couple of years, but it sure seems like one of the reasons for MCCMC is to collaborate between cities and share our lessons learned. And so I'm disappointed that we would sunset this, because homelessness is not over. And we had a small situation in Fairfax, which cost us quite a bit of money. And I know Lisa and Chance coordinated with folks in other cities, but it sure seems like this is a missed opportunity to just sunset it. And so that's my thoughts. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Liesel?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I was had talked to Mark Milberg about this before he passed, and he too wanted to reconvene the committee because we felt like, and I'm so sad for all the reasons that he's gone, but because we kind of felt like it would be really important for the group to get back together and talk about, like, say for instance, how the ordinances that were passed in Fairfax and Novato impacted neighboring communities, what sort of lessons learned there were from that, and also, what kind of initiatives people were embarking on since that time. San Rafael has done a great deal. There's been some activities in other communities, and so we thought it would be useful to get back together and just discuss where we're at now, and if there's anything further we can do as a collaborative, and also just really look at other initiatives we might be able to adopt to forestall homelessness before it happens. So I was the person who probably wrote about 6 times saying, can we please get back together? And I also have another council member who was a new council member who had really looked forward to being on this committee, but we never actually met while he was on it. So it's possible that maybe it's no longer relevant, but I had hoped that we would at least meet and discuss before we decided to sunset.
Thank you.
Are there any other raised hands?
Yes,
There's
Eli Hill and then Pat Eklund.
Yes, thank you. So I know Rachel Kurtz is not here right now, Vice Mayor Kurtz. If I will hope to do her honor to share the reasons, and it is not because homeless is no longer an issue. In her estimation, in terms of the times that people would meet, the attendance had really dropped off. And there was a notion that there are existing ways for the various cities and county to collaborate in one place with the existing committee that I can't currently remember the name of it, but that is the one where a lot of the coordination and attention is going. So while on face value, I think it could appear that we are abandoning our focus on homelessness. What I can assure is that, at least from Councilmember or Vice Mayor Kurtz's perspective, and I want to honor what she's saying. Obviously, she's not here, but I just wish to make sure that the body does not believe that we are abandoning homelessness. And yes, I'm seeing Carolyn Joachim indicating homelessness or the Homeless Policy Steering Committee. Thank you.
Okay, and then Pat?
Yeah, my feeling is that before we eliminate this, I think we need to see this other committee, and is there a way that cities could join that effort? Because I think that we can do a lot more if we do things together. And I don't know who represents Novato on that other committee, but the few meetings that we did have with the homeless committee, I think it was pretty insightful. And because I was on that committee for several years that we had it, but then it sort of lost its focus a little bit, I guess. But anyway, so I I would like to see if we can maybe do some homework, see what the committee is that currently exists, and is there a way to make sure that all cities are represented, and figure out a way that we can still work together, because this is still an issue, and the big cities or the small cities or whatever, a few cities just can't solve it themselves. We have to really work together in all the cities and the county
So I
and the
wanted to,
nonprofits.
the Homeless Policy Steering Committee, I think, is the countywide committee, and we voted to designate a person to represent us, and that was Caroline. And I'm sure she has more to say, so just putting that out there.
Okay, great. I'll listen to Caroline.
Caroline has her hand raised.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to up and down. Yeah, so the homeless subcommittee did meet, but we were also meeting at the same time with homeless policy steering committee. And to Pat's point, we felt like that was more effective because you have all the stakeholders in that room together.
Right.
And we totally agree. This is not something that one jurisdiction is going to be able to solve or even take the lead on it. We all have to be working together. And so we were spending more time with the homeless policy steering committee and with that group of people. And then also Rachel and I have been, as a subgroup on that, focus on older adults. So that roundtable really does have a diverse group of stakeholders. All the cities are actually welcome to attend. Actually, Mark did attend the last one that we had. So I would encourage that is the proper forum. And then, I don't know, I mean, we could always report back into an MCCMC
Yes.
with respect to any updates or with respect to any policy considerations. But the
Yeah.
HPSC is really where the work is being done and the conversations are being had.
Let's see.
Okay, and Alice has her hand raised, and then Pat.
I was just going to agree with Caroline that it might be useful if it's not an additional burden for someone else to report out from that homeless committee to MCCMC. Just give us a report with the agenda every month. That'd be great. Thank you.
And so just a couple of comments. I think it's really important that each city be represented on that committee and not necessarily have someone volunteer themselves. You know, typically What cities do is we designate which council member has an interest and is willing to attend and report back to the entire council, or a staff person. But typically we would do an elected official if it's dealing with policy issues, which homelessness does. So I think just having somebody attend is not necessarily how we should do this. I think we should make sure that each city has a rep, an official rep, whomever we want to designate from the council or whatever.
So that would constitute a real change with that committee, which we obviously don't have authority to do. So
we don't. Okay.
So I guess Caroline, and I don't know if there's a consensus in this group to do that, so we can talk about that. But I guess I just want to chime in with the comment that an ad hoc should have some type of deliverable or white paper, some type of report, recommendation, proposal. I'm not aware that existed for the MCCMC homeless subcommittee. There was a lot, when I was on it for a very brief time, there was a lot of best practice sharing, different experts from the county and beyond sharing. And it was a lot of just like getting up the learning curve of everything involved. But I was never aware of what the end game was, if you will. So I don't personally think it's appropriate to resurrect the ad hoc unless there is something to deliver to this forum. And I guess I would like to hear from folks if we'd like Caroline and Rachel to take back to the county that we want representation from every jurisdiction.
And Caroline, is it possible for you to at least let me know when they meet?
Absolutely.
Because I, having been involved with the homeless since I've been on the council for a long time, and long before we got Homeward Bound even constructed, I just want to make sure that there's a place for us, frankly, for those of us who have been engaged in it for a long time.
Absolutely.
I wanted to echo what Pat said and also note that I think that the homeless point in time count took place this morning, and we weren't actually aware of that in Fairfax, so we were just kind of feeling like some things are or I'm feeling a little bit like some things are falling through the cracks.
Okay, and Catherine Way has her hand raised.
Yeah. Look, I think we should consider this as an example of the power that the MCCMC has to move the needle in Marin County, because years ago we started the first committee that wanted to look at cities that are impacted by unhoused individuals. And back when Sloan Bailey from Corte Madera was the chair of this, we created a shower. Do you remember we made a commitment to create an opportunity to create a shower venue, or whatever we call it, a shower truck.
Right.
And we all contributed to that because we realized there's this group that unhoused individuals needed our support. And now I see that we have created the traction countywide to recognize that our commitment to that and our financial commitment and our city commitment to that has now created an opportunity at a higher level. And I hear Caroline talking about that, and I think we should support that, because that's what we should do. Is we should be committed to our residents and to our communities, create the infrastructure, and then push it up to a higher level. Because this is a countywide issue. It's not a Larkspur issue. It's not a Tiburon issue. It's not a Mill Valley. It's a countywide issue. And as individual cities, we don't have the resources for this. And so I think we should support the idea that now the county has recognized that we value this. We put our money forward early on, and now they should take it over.
So, Catherine, we would never have been able to support Homeward Bound. We, the city of Novato, we actually helped fund that. And so, Novato has put a large investment in this already, but that doesn't mean that we should stop. And so I think homelessness affects all of the cities, and I think that we need to figure out a way that cities can officially be engaged without hearing from the grapevine that there's this other group that's making decisions dealing with our town.
Well, Pat, I'm not really sure I understand. It's not through the grapevine. I mean, it's I don't want it to come across that this is like a secret or a small group that's met. This is something that's was started at the county, and it's this drive to really involve everybody, and including, you know, the lived experience, NPOs, NGOs, elected officials. It really is a diverse group of stakeholders that are sitting around a table and trying to figure out how are we going to combat this? How are we going to house all of our unhoused? How are we going to do it without funding? And for those discussions, it really does take everybody at every different level happening. So I'm happy to share when the meeting dates are. I want you in that room. I think you should be in that room. And if there's a way that we can figure out how to get representation from each jurisdiction so the voices can be heard, that's even better.
That's what I want. That's
Okay,
what I want.
you got it. You got it.
Each city should have a piece of the pie, in my opinion, because it affects every city.
Right. And every city is affected differently too. Absolutely.
Exactly.
You can understand that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Stephanie, I don't know where we go from here, but
Well,
I'm happy to help in any way.
I really appreciate everyone's comments, particularly Catherine. Really, I didn't have that insight. I remember the mobile pilot, mobile shower pilot, but
Yeah.
I wasn't an elected then. So yeah, that's really helpful.
Can we
I guess,
check and see if there's
Caroline-
any additional public comment?
Sure.
I'm looking to see if there's any attendees with raised hands from the public. And I'm not seeing any raised hands from the public. And oh, Councilmember Hill has his hand raised again.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, I'm just looking at what our options are. The recommendation that I'm seeing stand out is that we consider the ad hoc or this committee, and then we could stand it up again if there's enough interest. What I will say about the Homeless Policy Steering Committee is that it was established at the county level in 2017, and it has a very formal governance and bylaws. It was established with the two representatives, at this point, including Caroline and Rachel. So, I mean, there are ways that we could move forward, just sunsetting what its current instance here, which I think I would support as a motion, and then we can consider if we wanted to stand up another one, or how we engage with the HPSC, to consider either expanding membership from the municipalities, or find a way to make certain that we're able to more formally move through the two selected members from the jurisdictions.
So I'm happy to entertain a motion to sunset the MCCMC Homeless Committee subcommittee.
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Rebecca, you want to take a vote?
Yes. Belvedere?
Yes.
Corte Madera is absent. Fairfax?
Yes.
Larkspur?
Yes.
Mill Valley?
Yes.
Novato?
Yes.
Yes.
Ro-
I'm not sure.
Ross?
Yes.
San Anselmo is absent. San Rafael?
Yes.
Sausalito?
Yes.
And Tiburon?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes.
And so, Eli, will you obviously pass on the feedback to Rachel and Caroline? Could you represent or pass on the discussion and related to having broader representation? And if that's something that you can come back to us, we can get it back on the agenda. Does that sound like good
Yes.
next steps?
Yep. And the next meeting is February 11th.
What time?
It's usually at 10, but I'll confirm that, Pat.
Caroline, just send me an email.
You got it.
Thank you.
Or if you want to send it to Rebecca, Rebecca can send it out to all of us, because if it's a public meeting, anyone is
Yeah,
able
just
to
I want to
tell.
make sure I get the information.
Okay. Moving on. Thank you, everyone. We have the draft agenda for February 25th. Any questions related to that, or I'm happy to entertain a motion?
That's just, it's just informational, but I
Oh,
would
okay,
need
we
to
don't have to
check
take an
with-
action. Okay.
No, but if we are meeting in person, I'll have to check. We've got Assemblymember Connolly scheduled to speak and Omar Carrera. I'm not sure if Assemblymember Connolly can attend in person, so I would need to make sure he could attend. But I'm fairly certain that Omar Carrera can attend in person if we do meet in person.
Rebecca, I think if you're having a meeting, it's the body that needs to be there in person. You can still have Zoom speakers.
It is difficult to have a Zoom speaker at a restaurant, though.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't done that in the past, so I don't know if I can make that happen. I don't know where we will be meeting, so there's a lot of variables. And I will see what I can do. But yeah, that's the only update from
Do
that
we have to
item.
take public comment on that?
We take public comment on all of the agenda items, but I'm not seeing any raised hands, and we did not receive any emailed public comment.
Okay.
And then the next two items, I'm actually going to ask you to carry them forward to the next agenda. The minutes are, they weren't ready for this packet because something happened to my
No
Word files.
problem. No problem. Let's move on to item 5, the committee reports. Pat, you want to offer the highlights for ABAG?
Yes, it's a fairly straightforward report that I did. We did do the draft Plan Bay Area 2050 and the environmental impact report. That's out for public comment, and comments need to be submitted February or March. And I did include some of the draft strategies for Plan Bay Area 2050 in this report. And then for BCDC, just wanted to talk about the regional shoreline adaptation plans. All cities and towns in the Bay Area are going to have to develop this regional shoreline adaptation plan. And so I was going to, and I probably will still try to get representatives from each of the cities to, and I was going to talk with the county a little bit about how we can get, whether or not the cities all want to do it together or do we want to do them individually. And so this is a fairly big haul. I know that not all cities in Marin are along the bay, but there is the majority of cities that are. So please take a look at the RSAPs, and if you have any, especially that discussion, if you have any issues, please do not hesitate to call me. My cell phone number 415-336-9913, and it's public. So feel free to give me a call. And also the Army Corps of Engineers is doing their maintenance dredging plan, and also BCDC is dealing with sea level rise, which is directly related to the RSAPs. So if there's any questions, I'm glad to take questions now or at the end or personally.
Yeah.
RSAPs is important, though. We need to figure out how we're going to do it in the county, if each city's going to do it itself or whether the county. We haven't had that discussion yet.
And Alice has her hand raised.
Yeah, I do have a question. There is a countywide sort of ad hoc committee organized by the county to figure out at some point in the process of developing regional shoreline adaptation plans, how the jurisdictions will coordinate.
Well,
Is
I'm
this
surprised that they haven't contacted me because I'm the representative to BCDC.
Well, this is more of sort of a structural question of what would it look like? Would it look like TAM? Would it look like one of the South Bay cities? Anyway, they don't meet very regularly.
Well, Alice,
But
could you give me the contact?
my point is that it's on the radar.
Can you give me a contact person that I can call and have some discussions with? Because obviously I have some ideas. And having worked for the EPA for 35 years,
Okay.
I definitely, all in water, I definitely have the technical background.
The person who first was organizing it is in the county planning department. Her name is Chris Cho. We haven't met for a while, but
Oh yeah, no, I'm on that committee and we haven't met for a long time.
yeah.
And the meeting that we had scheduled, I think, for this week got canceled because she's
Okay,
not.
this is getting beyond committee
Right,
reports.
I know.
Anyway, I just wanted to put that on everyone's radar that they're sort of doing it in this not terribly organized way. There is a structure to talk about it.
But Alice, we haven't had that discussion as part of that committee.
I was in meetings where they did.
Well, it'd be nice.
Maybe
if
we're
we shared
talking
that.
about different committees.
All right, thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.
Can we move on to the Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation? Holly, is there anything you want to highlight in your report?
I'm submitting a written report, so I'm not going to take the time right now to highlight anything.
Yep.
Thank you.
I will send her report out to the full MCCMC email list when I receive it. So probably when I do my wrap up and announcement for the February meeting.
Okay. And Alice, Tam, anything you want to highlight?
Yeah, let me just highlight one thing if you haven't gotten it yet. The Measure AA expenditure plan is going to be sent out for public comment. There are some changes. They created a new category called Reimagined Roadways. That's mostly a category that is going to fund major road projects on key corridors that don't have sources of funding. And it's mostly funded not with new money, but by reducing the percentage of the Measure A expenditure categories. Some of the categories get, one of them being local roads. There was a little angst about that, but it was pointed out that our local infrastructure is in very good shape and has other sources of funding, and that's why it was one of the categories that was marginally reduced. I think it was 0.5%. Anyway, you'll find the details in the written report.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. Thank you for your patience to our two presenters this evening, Stephen Torrance, Marin County Director of OEM. We'd love to hear from you related to the recent flood response and disaster proclamation.
Good afternoon, mayors and council members. Good to be with you. Stephen Torrance, Director of Emergency Management for the County of Marin. Here to speak, as mentioned, about the recent king tides that resulted in a disaster proclamation. And I'll just brief you on on a couple of high-level action items of the actions that were taken, the impacts, and the next steps that we are taking countywide with a number of the jurisdictions within the county. So just high level, the Office of Emergency Management, in coordination with the National Weather Service, we did get a brief that we did expect higher tides with the king tides that traditionally come into the county. Many of the early predictions were that the tides would be closer to about 7'3", 7'4", which is fairly common, where we see some of the routine nuisance flooding that typically happens along Manzanita Parkway in the Sausalito Marin City area. Also getting into some of the Tam Junction area and into some of the water, the washes. Unfortunately, what happened is we had a convergence of not only just the king tides, but we also had some storms that came in at the same time. And the unique opportunity for the atmospheric pressure to push wind from the north into Marin County's Bayside, which resulted in an additional 1.3 feet of storm surge getting into the Bayside of the county. Overall, what that resulted in is one of the highest tides that we have seen since 1998. With the predicted tide getting increased from 7.4 to 8.4 feet. What that resulted in is what many people saw on Saturday, January 3rd, which was many flooded streets, many flooded communities, and also impacts to Highway 101, which had regional impacts throughout the entire county and beyond. As a result, what we recognize in coordination with the California Highway Patrol, Caltrans, and the cities and towns is that we sent numerous agencies sent out messages to advise members of these impacts. Unfortunately, due to the regional nature of that incident, those notifications did not get as far as people intended to. Um, with that, on January 4th, the county did work with the cities and towns to send out a countywide alert Marin to advise of those impacts that were going to be regional, and then also with Highway Patrol to update the message boards in the event that we did have that happen. Unfortunately, on the 3rd, we did go out with some damage to do some damage assessments. And recognize that we did start finding impacts not only to government-owned infrastructure, but we also saw that there were levee breaches in multiple locations throughout the county. Of course, private homes and private vehicles were definitely impacted throughout the entire Bay Area, and specifically in Marin. We also had a number of state-owned infrastructures that are owned by Caltrans and our partners at the state, and then also a number of businesses. And so with that, we, after collecting the information from our cities and towns as far as the impacts that they were able to find countywide, this included from the town of Fairfax impacts to culverts out in West Marin, impacts to private roads, into the city of San Rafael, and then also the cities that you've likely seen on the news, such as Corte Madera, Larkspur, and Sausalito. In totality, we had we're approaching about $5 million worth of damage countywide, and that does not unfortunately take into consideration the impact of private homes, which is something that we're actually working on with the state and the federal government this week. As For awareness, once we get to about $1.2 million worth of damage countywide to government-owned infrastructure, that is our internal trigger for us to declare a local proclamation. And as a result, on January 13th, the county executive declared a local emergency and took that to the Board of Supervisors on January 20th, where that was ratified for the county. We additionally took the town of Corte Madera's disaster proclamation with ours, and then also included agencies that submitted damage estimates within our countywide proclamation to the Board of Supervisors for ratification. What that does for us as the next steps is it allows for us to start a conversation with the state and federal government. This is the first action that we are taking to be able to bring in resources. And I'm glad to say that just yesterday and today, the Office of Emergency Management, the Department of Public Works, and then members from Corte Madera and Larkspur were actually out doing damage assessments with Business Administration, Cal OES, and our partner agencies, where they're going through the process of validating the damages for us to be able to move into the actual, hopefully, reimbursement to our local agencies. Unfortunately, this is not a guarantee of any type of funding. As many people know, there are challenges that we are facing with the state and federal, or primarily with the federal government right now, related to FEMA. However, we do want to make sure that we are taking every opportunity to utilize every resource possible to recoup funding. For example, yesterday, walking with the Small Business Administration, we went to a number of mobile home parks where we were able to assess their homes, and taking into consideration the next steps that we will be able to go through. And hopefully, if those facilities or those homes are uninsured, that could result in low interest loans that come into the county. Also, for our businesses, for example, we went into Big Five and we were able to show the Small Business Administration that Big Five till this day is still closed. And they are having to go through the process of actually removing the floor and also going through and disposing of merchandise that was lost. And so this is going to be an ongoing assessment with the Small Business Administration. They will take back their findings to their administration and they will let us know if we are deemed eligible for those. And if so, we will continue to work with all your jurisdictions to advise of how those resources may become available to businesses, private homeowners, and more. I do want to highlight that one of the challenges with flooding events is that uh, the flood waters typically recede, and being able to show damage of flooding is very hard for us to do for the Small Business Administration and FEMA. And so it is one of those things where we are actually doing door knocks to be able to see what the impact is to people's homes. Sometimes it is going to be hard for us to validate that, but we are going to continue to work our way through the neighborhoods to make sure that we can see as much damage as we can, so we can hopefully uh, bring some resources to our community members. Um, One last thing I will highlight is we definitely recognize on January 3rd that there were some major impacts regionally and there were some areas for improvement. The Office of Emergency Management did host a after action report with over, I believe, over 15 jurisdictions yesterday, with the intent to highlight some of those areas for improvement and develop an after action report and corrective actions plan going forward. As a result, tomorrow we are anticipating that we're going to see higher tides. We're at about 6.8 feet. And so with that, some of the areas of improvement that we are putting together as of today is actually having field observers being able to see the tides come in, which will allow us to have a greater situational awareness and hopefully make some enhanced public information, or send out additional public information in advance so we can provide more information to the public in a timely manner. And so with that, we're hoping that, of course, this is not this is the only time we have to do this for this year. Uh, Unfortunately, we know the king tides do come in pretty routinely, so the goal is to have a plan to put in place to make sure that we don't have these same impacts impacting our community every single year. And so with that, I will say, first and foremost, thank you very much for your time, your staff support, in us being able to get this information to the state and federal government. And with that, I'll open up to any questions from the group.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Kevin, I see your hands raised.
Thank you. Question, aren't we going to be having king tides this weekend?
So that is correct. So we're going to start seeing some of the tides starting to move up tomorrow. With that, we're going to be having field staff from the Office of Emergency Management throughout the county doing some observations throughout starting tomorrow and Friday. Once we get an idea of the impacts from the 6.8, we're going to make a decision whether or not we're going to bring in staff over the weekend to also monitor those tides starting all the way through Monday.
The preliminary information you have, are they supposed to be as high or not as high? And I know we don't have any rain right now, which is a godsend.
That's correct. So we know that so tomorrow's tides are supposed to be 6.6, and then the highest that we're going to have for 3 straight days are 6.8 feet. What for what that means with context is we need to go out and figure out where that water gets to at 6.8. With all of the astronomical factors, it's hard for us to pinpoint where the water is going to stop. So that's where we're going to go through and actually put field members in the field to be able to see where the water is.
Thank you.
Catherine?
Hi, hi, Director Torrance. Nice to see you. I just wanted to confirm that, for the last 10 years, I have represented the MCCMC on the Countywide Disaster Council. And I have turned that role over to Fred Casisa, who from Corte Madera will represent us. But I would like to contribute that the advancement and the quality of response to the local cities and towns is astronomically better in the last several years. And I have seen it grow from a department that had no or very little contact with the cities and towns to one now that is very responsive. And much of this flooding that happened in the last 3 weeks happened in Larkspur and Corte Madera. And the Office of OEM and Under Director Torrance reached out to my city manager and our Director of Public Works and was very responsive. So what I would ask is all of you as our representatives to recognize that the Office of Emergency Management is here to help us. And we need to be proactive as electeds to say we need help. And they are all willing to help and to provide the information and to provide the resources and to help our cities and towns create the data that we need for possible reimbursement to our Public Works Department for the work that they do to mitigate further disaster. I'm really pleased at how responsive the director was to Larkspur, and I would encourage all of you to work with your city public works department and your city managers to just truly use them as a resource. Because when these things happened, we don't know when they're going to happen. But if we need to utilize our city resources, and we're hoping to hopefully get reimbursed or to get support for our local resources, they're here to help us. So Fred is your next person because I'm retired. I have retired from that role, but I'm here to be a resource should anybody have further questions.
Thank you, Catherine.
I just want to say thank you for that. One of the things that we've made a mission within the Office of Emergency Management is historically the county has never received what is termed as individual assistance, and that is the direct funding that goes to private homeowners, private businesses, and a lot of that is due to what FEMA would say is the wealth within our community. Unfortunately, we don't want to continue that track, and some of the changes that we've made are resulting in us potentially being eligible for those small business administration loans to come in. With that, we want to be able to make sure that we're getting all of the information from those agencies that are impacted. So we can hopefully one day get individual assistance into this county, primarily to really help our small businesses and be able to provide some level of funding, even though it might not be a federal grant, it might be a low interest loan that can help people get back in their homes as quick as possible.
Thank you. Eli?
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Director Torrance, for providing your update today. I think that we all, and I want to say we all, not just folks who are elected, but the community sees you as an outstanding leader from the county. I think you've appeared before the San Rafael City Council on multiple occasions, and you project the right kind of confidence. Even in your report this evening, sharing that the after action report is forthcoming, I think is an outstanding signal. I just want to see, are you able to share any previews of some of the themes that might be coming out of that, or do we need to wait until it comes out formally?
I can just highlight a couple of themes. One of the strengths that we've recognized within the county is that although we are small, there are plenty of relationships, and it speaks volumes to just this group. We all know each other, and so with that, that is one of the gaps that we see in some of the larger jurisdictions is that you never know who's going to show up, and so we're going to be building on that theme of really showing the collaboration that exists within the county. Of course, there are challenges that we face with resources. And one of the core things that was a challenge was this occurred starting on New Year's Eve and then moving through a holiday weekend where people were everywhere. And so one of the gaps that we're trying to figure out is how do we actually get in contact with people who might not be that go-to person on our call down sheet. It might be the third or fourth person. And so those are some of the things that we know are those corrective measures because We jokingly say this, but we mean it. It seems like every single incident that happens on a holiday weekend or a weekend overnight, where people might be out having, having time with their family, and we want to figure out how to close that gap.
Thank you.
Holly, I see your hand raised. Holly, you still with us? Okay, I have a question actually. It's not related to the floods, but Stephen, I was wondering if you are involved with the I guess the post-mortem and the mitigation plan with AT&T and the whole 911 debacle.
So our office is involved more from a response level. It's primarily being led by the fire department and the sheriff's department at the county level.
Okay.
And so I would say I'm tangential to some of the impacts as far as alert and warning. People might have gotten the wireless emergency alerts that were sent out. That is primarily where our focus is. And then also looking at the continuity of operations planning that we're going to do with the county partners and make sure that if this does happen, we actually have written plans to be able to jointly respond to them.
Okay, so
Stephanie, I did want to say something. Sorry, I couldn't unmute. I don't know why.
okay, well, could you hold it for a sec? Because I'm not done yet. So to stay informed on that matter, Stephen, we should be hearing from our respective chief of PDs through our city managers, et cetera.
That is correct. To my knowledge, our Jason Weber, who is serving as interim assistant county executive, is going to be leading that for the county, and then bringing in the sheriff's department and the fire department. And then they have been bringing in the associated law and fire agency reps.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Holly, go ahead.
Hi, Director Torrance. I just wanted to take a moment to thank you so much for all of your work. You were recently at our disaster council meeting, and since you've been here, we have just seen such a dramatic improvement. And I really want to commend you for the great work that you're doing. And I just really wanted to thank you tonight.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the support.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Director Torrance?
Okay. I'm checking online attendees from the public, and I'm not seeing any raised hands from the public.
Well, hopefully you're feeling very appreciated. Thank you. Thank you for your work. And we welcome you back anytime.
Thank you. And I'll make sure to share with my team who really do the work. So I thank you very much.
Perfect.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our last presentation with an organization called Placemate. And we have Isaac Landman here with us to share about their Lease to Locals program. This is something that Mill Valley just launched, and it's a potential solution for affordable housing, particularly for workforce. Welcome, Isaac.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'll get started. I have a presentation for you tonight. So that's right. I'm Isaac Landman. I'm the associate market director for Placemate. We administer a handful of workforce housing programs, and tonight I'm here to discuss with you some background on who we are as an organization, specifically discuss the Lease to Locals program, which is Placemate's one of our primary offerings of workforce housing programs. I'll do a deep dive on Truckee, California, which is where the Lease to Locals program has been in operation for the longest, and then also talk about what the program looks like in Mill Valley. And then I'll wrap up with what bringing a Lease to Locals program to a new market, such as any of the jurisdictions that you represent, might look like. So starting with some background on Placemate, we are a company that envisions a world in which communities thrive because local employees can find stable housing. And we work towards that vision by trying to accomplish our mission, which is helping local employees secure housing primarily in tourism-based economies. And I say primarily because we're also working in Mill Valley. I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. But helping local employees secure housing through innovative public-private partnerships around the country. And I'm here today to talk about Lease to Locals. And Lease to Locals is a long-term rental conversion program. It provides property owners with a financial cash incentive to convert their underutilized housing unit into a new long-term rental. And underutilized meaning that could be a short-term rental, that could be an empty second home, that could be a home that's really just under-occupied. And the Lease to Locals program gives those property owners a cash grant to start long-term renting that property. And we do that primarily, those properties need to be rented to local workers. And generally we do that in tourist towns. We also are now working in Mill Valley, as I mentioned. And Lease to Locals is a highly effective program to get housing immediately for the missing middle. Local governments generally turn to the program to assist folks in the missing middle, meaning community members who make too much money to be housed in capital A affordable housing, but for whom there's still a scarcity of units available. We, over the last 5.5 years that Placemate has been in existence, have operated 15 Lease to Locals programs. We're currently operating 9 across California, Nevada, and in Massachusetts. We have also operated programs in Colorado, Idaho, and Vermont. Over the last 5.5 years that we've been working, the Lease to Locals program has unlocked 860 new long-term rentals, and that's led to long-term housing for just under 2,000 people total. So I want to do a deep dive into our oldest standing market in Truckee up in the Tahoe area, which is where I'm located. The Lease to Locals program launched in Truckee in November 2020, really in response to the housing strain that was caused by the pandemic. And the way that the Truckee Lease to Locals program works is if a property owner has an underutilized home, they are eligible for a financial incentive if they start renting that home for no more than $3,500 a month to a local worker household group, where at least half the tenants are qualified as local workers, meaning they work at least 20 hours per week within the school district geographic boundaries. And if an owner signs a new long-term lease with a qualified household, they are eligible for an incentive based on the number of qualifying tenants in the house and the length of the lease that they sign sign with the qualified household. So up here in Truckee, as I would imagine many of you are familiar, we have a winter and a summer month. So there's a seasonal option, and that incentive per qualified tenant is $2,000. And then if you sign a 12-month lease, a year-long lease, you get a $4,500 incentive per qualifying tenant, maxing out at $18,000 total if you sign a lease with 4 qualified tenants. In the last 5.5 years of operation, we've had, I want to call out a couple of data points here. We've had over 1,100 homeowners reach out with interest in the program. And of those 1,100, we've converted over 250 properties to be new long-term rentals. Of those 252 properties that are new long-term rentals, 43 of them are still actively leasing, and 209 of them have reached the end of their lease term that they entered the program with, and they've graduated from the program. They're no longer receiving a financial incentive to operate as a new long-term rental. And at the end of that lease term, 72% of those owners have reported that they've continued to long-term rent. They've retained their property as a long-term rental, either with the existing tenants that they had in their unit at the time of starting to long-term lease, or to a new tenant group at the end of that lease term that they were participating in the program with. The program has housed over 600 people in the last 5.5 years at an average rent per bedroom of a little over $1,000 per month and an average rent per property of around $2,500 per month. In total, the town of Truckee has spent just under $2 million on grants for property owners and a little over $500,000 on administration over the last 5.5 years that we've been working with them. In addition, the average cost of incentive per property is just under $8,000. And what I want to underscore here is the town is putting $8,000 per property forward to convert those properties to be new long-term rentals. And that money is actually going further than just one long-term lease, because if I click back to this slide, because 72% of these owners are continuing to long-term rent, it really shows that their investment is going quite a bit further than just that initial lease term. And when you compare that to the cost of, what it would be to build a new workforce housing unit, this, that really pales in comparison to this. And this is a way to create housing immediately using the existing housing stock that's already constructed. So now, switching gears to Mill Valley, we launched as a pilot in Mill Valley in December of 2025, about 7 weeks ago. And this is the first time that Placemate has worked on a lease to locals program in a metropolitan area in a suburban town. And before we launched, Placemate and town staff, we partnered to investigate the housing data, looking at the number of short-term rentals, empty second homes, ADUs. We worked with housing partners and housing advocates to get an understanding of the housing landscape in Mill Valley, and looked at the housing action plan as well to determine whether a lease to locals program could actually be feasible in Mill Valley in a suburban town like Mill Valley. And what we found was that Mill Valley has about up to 1,000 units that may be good candidates for long-term rental conversion. So Mill Valley launched a lease to locals pilot program with the following program guidelines. Properties that are located within incorporated Mill Valley that have not had full-time tenants for more than 12 months and are not currently on a 12-month long-term lease are eligible for financial incentives if they sign a new long-term lease, a new 12-month lease, and rent either for no more than $4,500 a month if it's an entire private home that's being rented, or $1,500 per month if it's a room in a shared home. They also need to rent that property to a household that's locally employed, where at least 50% of the adults work at least 20 hours a week in the 94941 zip code, and where the average adult income does not exceed 120% of the area median income. If property owners agree to do that, then they're eligible for an incentive of up to $14,000 if they're renting to 2 qualified tenants in a private home or a private unit. And if they're renting a room in a shared home, they're eligible for a $3,500 incentive payment per qualifying tenant. Mill Valley, the way that the program is being funded is the city of Mill Valley is covering administrative fees and marketing, and the Community Housing Foundation is covering the cost of grants. So the total pilot budget is $113,500. And we're expecting that will help convert 3 to 7 properties to be new long-term rentals within the 6-month period that the pilot program is running. 3 to 7 properties being the range, depending on the number of qualified tenants and the type of housing units that we get. Since the program launched, we've done a good amount of promotion. Just under 6,000 postcards were sent out to property owners in Mill Valley to advertise the program. We've also gotten a good deal of local press, most notably a front page story on the San Francisco Chronicle, which was really exciting. We're also anticipating a local CBS station to run a story in the coming weeks, I hope. So thus far, we've had 23 total property owners reach out with interest. Of those 23, 15 are not qualified or not interested in the program. But 8 of those 15 are interested properties just outside of the incorporated boundaries of Mill Valley. We're actively working with 8 qualified or interested properties on applications, and 1 property owner has actually placed tenants, and we're working on their application hoping to convert it to be our first program participant shortly. Remember, the program only launched about 7 weeks ago, and it's fairly typical to need some time to get the momentum going before we start seeing our first conversions. So switching gears, what needs to be in place to launch a lease to locals program? We generally look for 3 factors in a local jurisdiction. The first being a public jurisdiction partner or a nonprofit partner that we could work with and work with to administer the program in tandem. The second is funds being in place for at least the first year of program operation. Typically, if a jurisdiction wants to launch a full-scale lease to locals program, that costs between $300,000 to $500,000. 15 to 25% of that total cost being allocated to administrative and marketing costs, and then the remainder of those funds going towards incentive budget. And then finally, the third factor is political will from the community and elected officials such as yourselves to vote the program in, stand it up, and get it operational. So this is my last slide. Lease to Locals is funded in a variety of manners across the jurisdictions that we've worked with. Some jurisdictions use a lot tax, others used ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act, COVID relief money. In many tourism towns, there's a dedicated housing fund. Often that's funded through transient occupancy tax, a tax on short-term rentals. Mill Valley, as I showed you, is funding the incentives through a nonprofit partnership, and they're paying for the administrative and marketing fees. So that's all of my slides, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And thank you for the opportunity to present here.
Thank you, Isaac.
Okay, I'm seeing Catherine has her hand raised.
Hey, interesting idea, Isaac. 2 questions. If I owned a house in Truckee and I could use it as an Airbnb and make $5,000 a month, what would be, or a week during high season? Because that's what a lot of people pay. What would be my motivation to do this? That's number 1. Number 2 would be, what is Placemate gaining from this? In other words, as an elected, how would I want to make my community committed to this idea? They will ask me, what is Placemate going to profit from this?
Got it. Sure. So I'll start with your first question. Why would a property owner want to participate? Housing is such a personal asset to own. And what we found is, this program is not right for all property owners, but the original ideation of the Lease to Locals program was to target these underutilized second homes. So sure, if you're a property owner that has a short-term rental, it's operational, you're making $5,000 a week on it, you probably don't see the benefit in this. But if you're a home that maybe you short-term rent your property, maybe you think your family's going to use it and they're not using it, maybe you are moving, whatever it is, if the property has not been long-term rented in the last 12 months, then it would be eligible for this program. And so the ability to gain up to a certain amount of rental income plus the financial incentive helps to kind of make that argument between if you're a short-term rental, maybe I'll consider converting, or if I am a little trepidatious about starting to long-term rent, this is a really good option to consider it and to try it out. And you could maybe use the incentive payment as an extra large security deposit, right? It's a little bit of extra security when trying to long-term rent. So I hope that answered your question. And then from a financial perspective, Placemate charges typically a flat administrative fee that's based on the number of properties that we're trying to convert. Our typical fee for if a jurisdiction is looking to convert 30 properties would be $7,500 a month. But that ranges depending on the amount of properties we're looking to convert, the complexity of the program.
Thank you for that. I applaud you for answering those questions. We in Larkspur have dealt with some interesting configurations on creating short-term and stopgap housing for individuals, and you probably have read about our Serenity issue, and so I'm skeptical and want to ask lots of questions about what a city would tie themselves into for a situation like this. So thank you for Isaac for answering that and the information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Liesl?
I was just wondering, so 7,500 a month, and you're saying for like sort of a target of 30 housing units. Are you providing any additional services for the tenants or the landlords in terms of screening or otherwise helping match them up? Like
Yeah,
what
good
goes on to the
question.
administration?
Sure, good question. So what our administrative fee covers is marketing of the program, working with property owners, working with the jurisdiction as a partner to help market the program and raise awareness in it. We also maintain a local listings database where once a jurisdiction signs on, property owners that are looking for tenants can list their property on our website, and then tenants can create profiles on our website to look for housing. So we do provide a bit of that matching service, but the big part of what we do is we talk to property owners and tenants to inform them about the program and help them move forward to start long-term renting their property. So with property owners, there's a good deal of education because they're considering starting to long-term rent their property. We also encourage property owners to do quite a bit of their own self-education. We're not acting as the landlords, they are. So we really encourage them to understand, what burden they're taking on. And then we also try to make sure that tenants are aware that the program is coming to the community and ensure that they understand the benefits that the program is providing to them in creating the housing.
Great, because I wanted to note that, Mill Valley's been really creative in trying to find different avenues to get people with existing housing to rent that housing out to local people. I think Mill Valley's also involved with Home Match. So, and some of the West Marin communities have done sort of creative things around trying to get local people who have units to rent them out. So I'm just really interested in the different formats this take and would love to hear also from Mill Valley how they found out about this program.
Sorry, you might have mentioned this, but is there any requirement that the tenants work in the county or in the city or anything like that?
Yep. So in Mill Valley, the requirements are that the tenants, at least 50% of the adults in the household group, work for an employer based in the 94941 zip code, at least 20 hours per week.
Great. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any other hands. Well, good luck, Mill Valley. I really appreciate the creative solution, and we'll look forward to hearing how it goes.
And I just want to say that this is really Stephen Burke, who has led the charge on this. And like Liesl said, when we've been trying to be very creative in terms of finding housing units, and everybody knows how expensive it is to build the housing. And this was one of those things where we were hearing from the community, what we really want is workforce housing. And so when you frame it that way, that's one way to get your community engaged. Just like if you want more workforce housing, we actually need you to help us help you, and let's make this work. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, it is hard, it's like one housing unit at a time, but we're trying. We'll do anything.
We have a lot of vacant homes sitting here in Fairfax. They're not short term. They're sitting vacant, and there's probably a multitude of reasons for that. But a girl can dream. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if it could take actual RENA, like fulfill RENA?
Yeah, I agree. And just anecdotally, one of the things that we're finding is, we have so many single family residences and we're having those generational changes. And so what we're finding is the next generation, not sure what to do, tax implications, this is actually a bridge. It buys you time, so to speak, to figure out, and when you're ready to figure out what to do with the family home. So that was another one that we thought might fulfill a need here in Mill Valley. So we'll see.
Yeah, one of the questions that I had for when I talked to Stephen Burke about it is like I think the largest employer for you all is probably the Good Earth. It is for us here in Fairfax. If they had a role in promoting it to their employees or anything like that. It doesn't sound like they did, but that could be interesting for an opportunity.
And I did want to note also that when we visited Mill Valley for the live MCCMC meeting, we also had a report from you on, all of the other innovative things not all of them, several other innovative things that Mill Valley was doing. So this just kind of adds to that portfolio. So, again, echoing what other people said, just a real appreciation for the willingness of Mill Valley to try a bunch of different avenues in what's a really difficult housing market.
Stephen will be happy to know. I'll pass it along.
Isaac, I know you're on East Coast time. Oh no, you're here. Are you here on the West Coast?
Yeah, I'm up here in Truckee.
Okay, great. Because I know the others are in the East Coast. So really appreciate you being with us this evening, and best of luck, and we'll look forward to hearing more.
Great. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Okay,
you too. And I think we're at the end of our agenda. The next meeting is February 25th. And I would just like to adjourn in memory of Renee Good and Alex Preddy and all the other folks who have died while in detention. It's pretty troubling times for us, for everyone right now. And I hope everyone's holding steady. And thank you for being here this evening. Catherine, it looks like you're talking, but you're on mute. No, okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Oh my God, I can't even leave the meeting.